know in your younger years, you were an elite netballer, and you were at the AIS and you did a lot of that. Is that where your mindfulness training first started, or how did that come about?
No, that
Ah,
is not where it started. I, uh, you probably don't know my name in netball because I had no practice whatsoever, and I actually thought the whole sports psychology thing was a waste, not a waste of time, just not for me.
mm,
So straight after school, I went to the Institute of Sport. I made my first under 21 Australian team when I was, I think, 16, like year 10 at school. So I was quite young
mm.
and considered, quite talented. Went off to the Australian Institute of Sport, pretty much made any team that I tried out for. And that was the first time that I was exposed to sports psychology because there was sports psychologists available to you
Mm.
at the institute. But in my mind, I was very much like, well, I don't have a mental health problem. I don't have anxiety. I don't have any problems. I was from a really balanced family and, very normal and so I thought, oh, I don't need that. That's for people with problems. And whilst I was at the institute, sort of the back end of my time there, I started to get a lot of injuries.
Mm.
Just one injury after the next injury. And when an athlete has a lot of injuries, you can get very much into this, I call it the injury shame cycle, where you feel a lot of shame that you've got to tell people that you're injured again and like that I'm not good enough because I just can't seem to string much time together without an injury. And it's really hard mentally when you're going through that. That's where I probably needed some sort of
Yeah.
mental practice. I remember having one session with the sports psychologist, and he had me make a highlights reel of me playing, and there was like this flotation tank at the Institute of Sport, and you would watch it in the flotation tank. I had no idea why I was doing that,
Mm.
what the purpose was behind that. I did it a few times, and eventually the injuries took their toll,
Mm.
and I just didn't really have any idea about goal setting or coming back from setback. And so my parents were very pro education. They were very they thought netball was a side thing and that my career should be it. So I eventually just walked away.
Mm.
And yeah, it was really probably uh a waste.
Mm.
But on another hand, it really contributed to me being able to do what I do now because I understand what athletes are thinking and feeling, and I understand their reservations around the mental space, and I understand the shame that they're in when things are not going well. So, whilst I never made it at the senior level as a national netballer, it really prepared me for what I do now.
So, what was the moment then where you went, oh, actually, I might get into this mindfulness thing? Like, what was there a turning point or a mindset shift that
Yeah.
kind of,
Yeah, I always, and I say this to people all the time who talk about passion and I want to, follow my passion and work in my passion. And it's like, what does that even mean? What should that be? And I always say, like, look for things that you spend money on, that you spend your time on, that you're having casual conversations around, books that you read. If you're wondering what your passion is, and right from when I was at school, I would be the person watching Oprah Winfrey. I would be the person when I left school and left netball and I moved into my career, which was in public relations. I would be the person trying to help people with their problems. And it just really always fascinated me. And so when I was in my 20s, my mum was diagnosed with high blood pressure and she was told to learn to meditate. And so I thought, well, I'll go and do it with her as a way to make sure she does that.
mm,
And so we found a local lady. She was quite an elderly lady, and we went and learnt traditional mindfulness from her. And that was at a time when no one was talking
no,
about mindfulness. You'd never heard of the word. And I was
very
like,
like
this,
hippie, wasn't it? Sorry.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I just thought it was the most incredible thing I had ever learned. And I loved it. And shortly after that, I was also I had moved into coaching with netball, and I was sort of an assistant coach at that, the equivalent to the VFL football level. And the senior coach, who was also a mentor of mine, I was at her house and I found a book on the bookshelf called Sacred Hoops. It was written by Phil Jackson, who was the coach of the Chicago Bulls. And he coached in the era of Michael Jackson and Scottie Pippen and those guys. And I read this book, and it was about mindfulness and how Phil Jackson believed that as a coach, if he could help athletes become still and present in the moment, anything that Michael Jordan did in the moment was going to be better than had Phil coached him, because he was the legend. If he trusted his instinct, he would come up with a better response. So Phil Jackson started to put more time into training his players in being mindful and being present than he did in actual basketball. And so I took that, and I took what I had learned with this lady of in mindfulness, and it really grew from there. And then I went and did more study, and here I am back working in sport in a different capacity, far more successful than I was in my own career. And I talk to my kids a lot about this, because we think we're doing something and it's a waste of our time. I'm working in a cafe while I'm at school, and what a waste of time. And, I've got this job in accounting that I hate, and what a waste of time. But I think everything you do will create like a little piece of your puzzle, and you'll learn something there, or you'll meet someone there. And if you can see everything that you're doing as a little piece that's giving you a skill that you will ultimately use in that dream thing you've always wanted, you don't have to find that thing when you're in your first job. You don't have to find that thing when you're 25 years old. You don't have to. I always say to my kids, just keep moving, try something, learn from it, grow. Don't take another risk, take another step, and eventually it will all, come together in some way.
That's such good advice. And I always think the same. Things make sense often retrospectively. Like at the time, like you said, you'll be in something and it'll be like, this isn't going anywhere, it's not leading anywhere. But then you look back and you think, wow, thank goodness that happened. And sometimes, and often for negative things, thank goodness that, whatever it was, that I got sacked from that job, or, whatever, because I moved on to something else. So
Yeah.
it's really good advice. Mindfulness, pardon me, mindfulness isn't just for sports people though, isn't it? And I think everyday people can benefit from this. As a mindfulness coach though, what are some rituals or routines that are non-negotiable for you for everyday kind of living?
Well, I think it's really important first to sort of say what is mindfulness, because I think we're really confused by that.
Yeah.
I think we hear the word a lot, and then people will say to me, oh, my mindfulness is when I go running in the morning. My mindfulness is my cycling. My mindfulness is my bath time. And it's like, well, it can be, but it's probably not. So mindfulness is when we're in the moment and we're just present in the moment, and we're not attaching to anything. So let me explain this really basically. I'm here and I'm talking to you. And so if I'm mindful in this moment, what I'm doing is I'm just listening to your questions. I'm seeing your face on the screen, and I'm hearing the questions. I'm taking that information and I'm giving a response. And there is no stress in that. That's that I can't get anything wrong because I'm not trying to do anything. I can't, it's just a basic, I'm in the moment, you speak, I hear, I answer. That's not how most people are sitting on this podcast with you. They're sitting on this podcast and they're in their head thinking, oh, I hope I get this answer right. What if I make this answer wrong? Oh, what's the best thing to say from this? Oh my gosh, I don't look good on this screen. And should I have said that? Why didn't I say this for that answer? And so your attention is not in the moment. Your attention has gone outside of the moment to things in the past, like, oh, why did I say that? That was such a stupid answer to give.
Mm.
Or it's gone to things that haven't yet happened in the future. Oh gosh, I hope I give the right answer. What if I make a mistake? Or what are people going to think of me? I didn't even put makeup on. And, and so I'm going to two different places, neither that are in the present moment. Now, what's the big deal of that? The big deal of that is that as a human, our mind is wired for safety, and it's wired to stay alive. And so due to our wiring, our attention is wired to go to potential threats and get us ready to fight those threats. So we get this stress response in our body that is preparing us to fight a wild animal. So our heart rate is increasing, our muscles are getting tight. It's an actual stress response, because if we don't have a stress response, we're not going to get the necessary biological response to fight, to run away or hide. And so when I'm on this podcast in this moment, my mind is wanting to jump to the potential threats of what will people think of me, fear of failure, getting it wrong, not being good enough. There are threats. The caveman's threat was a saber-toothed tiger. Our threats are what will people think of me. So when my mind is jumping out of the moment to, why did I say that? That was stupid. Or, oh, I hope I don't get this wrong. They're threats to me. You not liking me, the audience not liking me looking bad. They're a threat to my survival, because my human need right now is to be liked and stay connected. So they're a threat to my survival. So when I go to those places, my body is producing a biological stress response to that. And now I'm in this fight and flight, and I shouldn't, I have to, and what if I don't? And my heart's going a little bit, my shoulders are getting tight, I'm tense. And so if you think about what I've just said, and the listeners think about what I said, and really reflect on their day, how often they're sitting in this stress response.
Absolutely.
Their alarm goes off in the morning. Oh, I've got so much to do today. How am I going to get it done? I'm so tired. They eat a particular food. Oh, I shouldn't have eaten that. Why did I eat that? Oh God, I've got to pick up the phone and make that phone call to someone. I hate me. We're in this stress response all day, every day. And when we're in this stress response all day, every day, our heart's racing a bit, our shallow breaths are a little bit shallow, not enough for us to notice. We're sitting in this all day, every day for many years. It's become very normal for us. And then when it gets elevated, all of a sudden we think we're being told we've got anxiety. And when we're sitting in that long enough without a break from that, and we can't get off the couch, we're being told we've got depression. Now, anxiety and depression are very real. And if anyone's suffering from that, they should go to their GP and get a referral for help. But for a majority of us, 4 out of 5 people, we are just sitting in this stress response, jumping, because we're never in the present moment. And what mindfulness is learning to come into the moment, anchor ourselves in the present moment on what I'm seeing, hearing, feeling. And that takes work.
Yeah, right.
That takes work. Mindfulness is not our relaxation time. It's hard work to catch our attention when it goes, come back, soften our breath, anchor ourselves in the present moment. So if someone's saying my mindfulness practice is when I go for a run, and they're listening to me talk now, they might realize that on their run, they're replaying conversations that they've had with people that they shouldn't have said. And why did I say this? They're going through all their work and their school to-do lists. They're worrying about the party they've got on the weekend, and they get to the end of the run and they are probably more stressed than when they started their run.
Yeah.
So that mindfulness is that, and it takes a lot of practice. So because I'm quite practiced at it, I can come on this podcast and I'm just present. I don't need to work hard at that. But in order for me to maintain that practice, which is finally, after that very long response, getting to your question,
explanation.
Sleep is non-negotiable for me. Like when we're tired, our body is already at a high stress level. So think about the caveman. If he's got stress in his body, it's because there's a tiger about to eat him. So if I'm not getting enough sleep and my body's in a stressed state, now I'm going to see everything through the lens of that's bad and dangerous. So sleep is non-negotiable. And what goes hand in hand with sleep is not scrolling in bed.
Yeah.
Um,
Put the phone away.
if your listeners could get one thing from this podcast, start charging your phone away from your bed, because you can't scroll on it if you put it on charge before you get into bed, and you can't scroll on it when you wake if it's not charged next to your bed.
And scrolling would also increase that anxiety, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so scrolling does two things late at night and a couple of things early in the morning. Scrolling late at night brings blue light into our eyes, which signals to our eyes that it's daytime, and we make certain chemicals and hormones because it's daytime. And so then we put our phone down and we can't sleep, but our body thinks it's daytime. So we want to get off those phones, like technically they say a couple of hours before bed, but if you can do it half an hour before bed, great. Yep. If you can only get off it to the point where you charge it over the other side of the room or in the ensuite or the hallway, great. Then start there. But the other thing it does when we're scrolling, the content that we're scrolling and the way that we're scrolling is really increasing this hit of dopamine. But the content that we're seeing, other people's feeds, is driving that threat response of, I'm not good enough, they look better than me, they have more than me, I'm in this dead-end job, what am I doing, I'm never going to get. And so now I'm in this danger, stress response. And then I ask myself to go to sleep. It's a bit like asking a caveman, hey, I know you're fighting a tiger right now, but could you curl up in a ball and go to sleep?
Yeah.
Not gonna happen. And so by getting off that phone in bed, when you wake in the morning, the other non-negotiable for me is the first 30 minutes of my day not on my phone. And so what that does is it gives you a chance to set your own intention for the day. As soon as you open that phone, those dangers come flooding in. You're either looking at the news or your social media feed or your emails or your to-do list. And now I'm in that danger. I have to, I should, what if I don't? Why didn't I? And now I'm in that stress response. Whereas the first 30 minutes of the day, give yourself an opportunity to breathe, to think about what you want to achieve. Who do I want to be? You can have a formal practice like journaling or meditating, but even if you don't, just 30 minutes is great.
And for you, do you journal? Do you get up in the morning? Like, what is your routine?
I'm not a journaler, and I think this is a really important point. I think journaling is probably one of the best practices that you can do. What journaling does is when we're ruminating, we're going over and over and over particular stuff, and when something's happened in the past that we think was bad, or something is coming in the future that we think is bad, our mind wants to sit on it over and over again as a way of warning us. That's bad, that's bad, that's bad, that's dangerous. And so until we find the learnings in that and send a message to our mind, hey, that's not really that bad, then our mind is going to keep going over and over and over it. So what journaling does is it's like a way of taking it out of the mind and putting it on paper, and it really breaks that rumination. Yeah. But your mind has to slow down to write. And so in the slowing down of it, you start to see it in a different way, and you start to see what you said before about the even negative situations there's learnings in. When you slow it down and you start writing it down, something that you have thought was really bad, your mind starts to make sense. Well, there was actually this benefit, and I learned that from it, and that wasn't that bad, really. So journaling is incredible. I had an IndyCar driver, Scott McLaughlin, who brought in no phone and journaling, and that changed his life. But he did it every day, not just race weekends. So if you can try journaling, but also know that if it's not your thing, if it agitates you, then that's okay. So what I find with journaling, it feels like another piece of work for me, and it feels like another thing that I have to do, whereas I love meditation. But for some people, sitting still and meditating is really difficult. I always say with meditation, if you find you're quite agitated, the point of meditation is not to still your mind, it's to let things come into your mind and let them go. And that's how we strengthen our mind. But if you're finding yourself really agitated with meditation, start with breath work.
Yeah. Okay.
And so the resources that I would suggest is the Breathwork app, which is by Wim Hof. Now, if you look up Wim Hof, he's this older man. He's like the guru of breathwork. He does it in cold water, but you don't need to do it in cold water. But he has an app. And what I love about the app is it's really simple to follow. He will literally, you press start and it's literally like breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, hold your breath. So, and there's like the athletes that I work with find that there's a competitive element to it because it records how long you went and what you did, so you can get that. But what I love about that app is you can wake up, you can do it for 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And what that has done, what that breath work has done, is it's changed your nervous system, calmed your nervous system down, even though it's quite active. And so now you go into your day not so much hypervigilant to everything. So that app is really good. Journaling, there are so many resources. Just Google, good journaling questions for the morning. The meditation, there's an app called Insight Timer. And you can pick the length of meditation you want, the type of meditation you want. You could go, I want a 5-minute gratitude meditation. I want a sleep meditation to listen to while I'm trying to get to sleep. I want a meditation for anxiety, and it will find you one. So anyone around the world that wants to put a meditation on an app, so you've got all different teachers, all different meditations on there.
That's awesome. I'll make sure I actually include links to the podcast as well. So with these elite athletes, the preparation is obviously incredibly important, but when it comes to crunch time, and we're talking like elite level, world class, the ones you're coaching, when it comes to that grand final, that those high pressure moments, what strategies do you suggest for them in those moments, or does the preparation set them up for that, or a bit of both?
Yeah, no, the preparation definitely. It's a bit like baking a chocolate cake, like there's a certain recipe for it if you've got the sugar and the flour, but if you leave something out, it's not a very good cake.
Yeah.
And so when an athlete or any human is trying to become more, perform at their best, or even just live their best life, or show up to the world as their best, it always starts with self-awareness. And so the very first skill that I'm teaching them is to actually have awareness. Remember how I said our mind wants to go to the future and the past? I've got to have awareness of when I go there and what happens to me when I go there. So, for example, a lot of people hate public speaking. And they just say, I hate it. I don't like it, whether it's a school oral assignment or it's, speaking at a job interview or, getting up in public and making a speech. People hate it. And all they know is I'm not very good at it. It makes me feel really nervous. And I fumble my words. And so what self-awareness looks like in that moment starts before I actually get up to speak. Maybe it starts in the days leading up to it. And I start catching myself, what I'm saying to myself. Oh, I'm telling myself, oh, I've got that coming up and I hate it and I'm so bad at it and this is terrible. Oh, and when I tell myself those thoughts, it makes my body really tight and my heart rate increases. And so then I watch myself when I'm just about to get up. Oh, I start to notice I breathe really shallow. And I start to tell myself, don't make a mistake, don't make a mistake. And so first we've got to gather all of the information around where your mind is going and what's happening to your physiology. Because when you stand up to public speak and you've been doing this for days, your mind thinks danger, 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 you're going to make a mistake, danger, danger, you're bad at this. And you've now got this shallow breath and tight shoulders and racy heart, and you go to open your mouth and speak and you stutter or your voice doesn't project. And now I tell myself more, I'm so bad at this. I'm so hopeless at this. Elite athletes are doing the exact same thing. They've got a grand final coming up and they're saying, oh God, I better play well. I hope I don't play well. I hope I play well. What if I don't? What are my friends going to think if I lose this? And their heart race is going. And if they've got no awareness around that, they can't catch it and shift out of that. So we always start with self-awareness, and then we teach them the skill of being able to catch themselves when they go to these unhelpful places. And that's really important. We want people to know that in mindset, there's not positive and negative. I'm either going to places that are unhelpful. This doesn't help me speak clearly when I get up in front of the class.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to a helpful place. Oh, this really helps me feel calm. This helps me perform at my best. There's some athletes, some school footy players who say, I need a big game this weekend. I'm going to kick 6 goals this weekend. I'm going to be, best on ground.
Yeah.
That's not negative thinking, it's positive thinking, but it's wildly unhelpful.
Yeah.
Doesn't help you. So we then get them to learn how to catch when they go to these unhelpful places, both their thoughts and their body. And quite often I'm telling athletes to shift body up. So I'm shifting my body and my physiology, and that will shift my thoughts. So how do I breathe differently? How do I stand differently? How do I smile? How do I use my hands when I talk and communicate? And so once they've got the ability to do that, then we layer it with things like confidence and grit and, focus and fight and all of these different things that we layer in there, so that when they catch themselves going to an unhelpful place, when they come back into the moment, what they're coming back into is this strong belief and confidence and power. So we've layered that stuff into their mindset, a bit like creating files in your mind that they can tap into.
Amazing. Wow. And it sounds a lot like, and I'm sure you're a fan of Joe Dispenza, it sounds a lot like his thinking, doesn't it? Where you really have to work hard, but be aware of your thoughts of all times.
Yeah, so I've done Joe's advanced training, and when I meditate, I typically meditate with Joe's recordings. I know all different types of meditation, but I just really like his music and his the words that he uses. But the premise of Joe Dispenza is that when we do talk therapy, for instance, and talk therapy is really beneficial for some people, but for some people, just going back and talking about the problem over and over again can, what Joe would say, is reinforce the neural pathways to the problem and to the old feelings. And whereas what Joe Dispenza is talking about is to get into the feelings of a new future. So this is something we use with athletes all the time, getting into the feelings and the picture of you performing at your best. And it doesn't have to be athletes. I use it for my life all of the time. I get into the feelings and the picture of what I want my business to look like, and what I want my family to look like, and my health to look like, and really sitting in that. And so what Joe would say is, when you're in the future picture, that's creating a new internal dialogue. So let's go back to that example of, I don't like public speaking. In the days leading up to public speaking, if you closed your eyes and you got into the feelings and the picture of watching you standing up, saying, performing at your best, being really confident, the audience liking it, you are programming your mind into those thoughts and those feelings. So when that event comes, your mind is already got a program for doing that and already believes that that's how it happens. And now your whole internal environment, which is what you think and what you feel, and Joe Dispenza says our personality makes up our personal reality, and your personality is made up of your thoughts and feelings. That if your personality is now someone who likes public speaking and speaks clearly and the audience responds well, and you've seen it and you've felt it over and over, now when you step into that reality, your mind and your body just follows that.
So visualization is obviously huge as well, but people have to do the work too, don't they? You can't just imagine you're going to be successful without putting some effort in and actually going through the motions.
Yeah, I think that manifesting space is a bit confused
Yeah.
sometimes. We think, or Jim Carrey wrote a check for what
Million
was it?
dollars,
$1
whatever it
million,
was.
put it
Yeah.
in his wallet, and boom, that just happens, right? But what we don't hear is Jim Carrey probably sat every day in this feeling of like, it's coming and this is what it's going to be, and I'm going to be so excited when this happens. And for most of us, if we're really honest, if we look at what we're sitting in all day, every day, it's this fear of something not working out and fear of not having it, and this comparison to everyone else that does have it. So let's say, Jules, for you want this podcast to be successful, and you wrote down on a piece of paper, I have the number one podcast for young people learning about success, and you wrote that on a vision board, and you cut out pictures of, your ratings and people listening to you. And then every day you sat there looking at other people's podcasts thinking, why isn't mine being as successful? And I'm never going to be as successful. And why isn't my vision board coming true? Well, you're in the thoughts and the feelings of that's creating a reality of it not being very good. And so the work is in really one, and Joe calls it doing the work. Like, you got to do the work before you jump into your meditation to know what you want it to look like. Actually know what do you want? What do you want it to look like? What do you want it to feel like? And then you can get into imagining it, journaling about it, sitting in those feelings. But we can't just say we want the number one podcast, but then sit in the feelings of why this is so bad and no one's listening. So, yeah, you've got to do the work.
And not only that, I would also then be needing to take steps to improve my skills and things like that, like the practical work as well, don't I? You can't just visualize yourself into success.
Yeah, so I say everyone's got a skill set.
Yep.
We all have different skill sets, but if we look at, you're all in the school football. I know I've used football. Let's say we want to be in the chess team at school, and you both have skills in chess, but the person that you're competing against for a spot has more skill than you. So think about our skill set like it's in a box, and so the other person's skill set is like 80% box full. Your skill set is 20% full. But that box we call skill set sits within a bigger box called mindset. And that mindset box, how you regulate it, control it, grow it, will determine how effective you are at bringing the skill set.
Gotcha.
So if someone has an 80% full skill set box and you've got a 20% full skill set box, but you've got a better mindset than him, you're going to get the most out of your 20%. He's not going to get the most out of his 80%, but he's still probably going to be better than you because he's got 80% skill set. You've only got 20% skill set. So you have to build that skill set box.
Yeah.
And if you build that skill set box as much as you can, then the difference is if you've got a better mindset box, you get to access a full skill set where a lot of people are not accessing their full skill set.
Yeah, no, that
was a complicated way. I've never explained it by that, but
no, I understand. It's like some of us have greater skill sets in different areas, but the person who embraces and utilizes and builds their mindset on top of whatever skills they've got will be able to kind of close that gap even, or potentially, become the best sort of thing, whatever.
Yeah, like I work in AFL environments, and one of the first things that I say is that, if you are not to your full capacity of fitness and skill and strength, it doesn't matter how much mindset work we do, you're not going to be reaching your full potential. So, a good mindset is never going to outplay, your skills not being where they need to be. Now, you might sit there and go, oh, but I don't have as much talent as them. It's not a talent thing. It's, a fitness, it's a strength. It's if you're not doing that work, but you can bridge the gap of talent with the right mindset for sure.
Yep. On that, is there a particular attribute that you see in people that make it to the elite level, is there something they have in common that you've noticed or observed that they already have sort of inbuilt?
Work ethic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Scotty James, the snowboarder, has just brought out his Netflix documentary,
Yeah.
and he talks on that about, he was one of the most gifted athletes, but it got to a point where he was not winning because he was not treating the work, he was not doing the work and treating it as seriously as he needed to be. That was what happened to me in netball. I didn't do the work. I had this talent that got me into any team, and then I just never knew what it was like to do the work.
Yeah.
And so everyone, the elite of the elite, all have an incredible disciplined work ethic, daily routines, really great daily habits. But then, so that separates them from the next level down. But what separates those that are doing the work to the few, I talk about it moving from warrior to magician.
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot of warriors that are at the top of the top. But magician is when now I'm tapping into this mindset that, and not a mindset of like just being able to be present in the moment, but a mindset of like this certainty in that it's working out perfectly for you, that it's this certainty in the unknown that you're about to step into. And I put athletes in there like Dusty Martin. I did a lot of work with Dusty,
Yeah.
and talent, skill, work ethic, all of that. But he had this ability when he stepped on that field to go to another place. Like it was like he opened a portal into this sort of spirituality of like just knowing. He just knew that he was going to do something special. So he's sitting in those thoughts and the feelings around that. And that's when the ball just bounces the right way and things just open up for you. So very few athletes get to that place. You got this group that are those warriors, but the magician just, it's like watching magic. Yeah.
For me, Muhammad Ali comes to mind.
Yeah, right.
Is that, and that's right. You just assumed he was going to be great because that's how he presented.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite special when you're watching it. And so they're a joy to work with when you're with people like that.
And it's probably those that can shift into that because it can't be easy, can it, to actually get to that stage? Like there must be a lot of people.
No, it's not. And it's something that really it only opens up when the athlete is ready for it. So, I go into an AFL club and I'm working with the whole list, and you'll see some people that think, oh, mindset's not for me, a bit like me when I was in netball. Oh, that's not my thing. I don't really need that. You'll see a small group that are like that. You'll see a big group that are very much like, I love this. This is great. I'm really active in it. But if I left, they probably would, fall away with it.
Yeah.
And then you see a very small few that it like opens this door and it changes their life and they just go on their own little journey with it. Errol Goodwin at the Swans, he was injured last year and he was out pretty much for the whole season, and he just became really curious about the mind and mindfulness and mindset, and watching him grow. That is when, an injury can become a real gift for someone, that it gives you time. And so he is, for those that don't know him, he's a Sydney Swans player, really talented, young, expected to be the best. But in that's where you can get very attached to outcomes and awards and stats, and the pressure is like, you got to be great. So you feel this attachment to it. And when he was injured, like in the first game of the season and out for nearly the whole season, he really, not because of me, because of his own choice, went on a journey of learning that, and consequently has come back into the game with a completely different perspective.
Wow. Do you think you can be the absolute best at anything without using mindfulness or without having that belief?
No, I don't think you can achieve your full potential.
Yeah.
No, because of our human wiring. We have to understand that we are wired to be safe and we're wired to stay alive. We are not wired to get a great ATAR, to become a doctor, to be the best on a football field, to be an incredible actor. We're not wired for any of that. We're just wired to be alive. And so there's this psychiatrist called Dr. Stephen Peters, and he wrote a book called The Chimp Paradox.
Yep.
And his story is he was working in a high-end mental institution in London or in England, and leading into the London Olympic Games, the British cycling team went to him and said, would you come work with our team? Like he was in a high-end mental institution. And so he came and worked with their team, and basically he was saying, so cycling is one of those sports where you go to some pretty dark places, the pain, the fatigue, and you're fighting your body not to give up and not to stop or take off the effort. And effectively what he says, the book he wrote is called Chimp Paradox. And how he explains it is the paradox is that we are wired the same way the chimp is wired. Now, I say we're wired the same way as a caveman, but the chimp was wired just purely to stay alive with enough energy to procreate and keep the chimp, species alive. That was it. And so what the chimp would do is if he was exerting effort, he would have to conserve that enough energy each day to procreate at the end of the day. Yeah. And now the paradox is we have this chimp wiring, but the paradox is that we're putting ourselves into an Olympic Games on a bike, asking our body to give 100%, whereas our body is like, that goes against my survival wiring, so I'm not going to do that. And so what he did was bring in tools and strategies which are very similar to the ones I use, so that we don't feel like we're in a dangerous situation and we don't need to conserve energy, so that we can go full out. And so if you don't learn those strategies and you're trying to become elite at something, your human wiring will just put a roadblock in place. So I can say with 100% certainty that if you don't have some mental practice that stops your nervous system going from shutting down into survival and protection mode, you just simply won't achieve your best.
What about using those strategies? I mean, how can the same strategies or similar ones be used for everyday people or weekend warriors or students wanting to do their best? Like, are there any simple kind of go-tos that they can use to...
Yeah, well, I can tell you for sure, having worked with students and mums and dads and business owners, and we all have the same stuff because we all have the same wiring. So we're going to the same places. We're going to 3 main places. We're going to fear of failure, like getting it wrong, making a mistake, an obsessive focus on the outcome and comparing our outcomes to other people. That's the football player who's counting stats on the field. It's the business owner that's looking at his competitors' results. It's, the student who's comparing exam and SAC results. And the biggest place that we're going to, and that's driving this survival stress response, is fear of other people's opinions. And so we're all going to the same places. It doesn't matter. It just sounds a bit different for an elite athlete because theirs is about a Grand Prix or a AFL game. Yours is about an exam or a job interview. They're exactly the same though. And so I come back to, if we don't start with self-awareness, just looking at what I was thinking, what I was feeling. So there's a great podcast to listen to called Becoming, it's with Stephen Bartlett, a diary of a CEO, and he's interviewing the author of a book called Becoming Indistractable. I can't pronounce his name. I can't remember his name. He was the author of a book called Hooked, and he came up with how to hook humans to apps. And once he taught the world how to create apps to get people hooked to them, his premise was, if I get the world hooked to fitness apps, then we're going to have a healthier world. But then what he worked out is that these apps are a major distraction, even though they're healthy apps. And they're causing a lot of anxiety because it's driving that, I haven't done my steps, I need to do my steps. Why did I didn't do as many steps as someone else? It's driving fear of failure. is driving an obsessive focus on the outcome. It's driving, fear of other people's opinions.
Wow.
So then he was like, oh, this is bad. Now I'll come out with how to not let yourself get distracted by all that stuff.
Okay.
And so I say that podcast because he steps out some really critical examples around your diary and time blocking your diary to have your values and priorities in there. But one thing he talks about, which is a strategy that I use quite often, I talk about starting with recording what you're thinking and feeling each day. If we don't know what we're thinking and feeling each day, we can't move off step one.
Yeah.
And I have athletes each day like reflect and write down. But what he does is he asks you to walk around with a notebook. And at any point you do take an action that you're not happy with. So, it's lunchtime and instead of sitting with your friends at school, you isolate yourself and you sit by yourself in the library. You'd get out your notebook. What am I thinking right now? What am I feeling right now? Oh, I'm thinking that my friends don't like me because I said that stupid thing yesterday and I'm feeling really anxious about it. And what you'll start to see is patterns. Or a really good example is I want to get fit and healthy and I didn't go to the gym today. I had a 5 o'clock class booked and I didn't go. Get out your book. What are you thinking and feeling right now? It's 5:02 and you didn't go to the class. What are you thinking and feeling right now? I'm thinking that I'm really tired and I'll do it another day, but how's that making me feel? I feel really guilty. And you'll just start to see the patterns. And so now once you see the patterns, we're trying to catch that thought, oh, I'm tired, I've had a long day, I'll go to the gym tomorrow. Now that I've called it out, it's like now that I've seen that I do that every time that I don't come to a class, when it comes, I can catch it earlier. And so then in that 30 minutes in the morning when you're not on your phone, you can start to think, what have I got on today? I really want to go to the gym. What could trip me up? Or I quite often get people to do this journaling. What could trip me up today from going to the gym? The thought that I've had a long, tiring day and that I deserve a break. That will come and I'm going to be ready to catch it. And I'm going to say this to myself. So it's just bringing all of that stuff out of the darkness and really looking at that. A really simple one too is when you catch a really unhelpful thought, like, oh, my friends don't like me. Why did I say this? Catching it. And rather than going deeper into it, just come and bring your attention back to your breath. Take a nice deep breath, feel your breath, connect with your breath, feel your feet on the ground. And it's like just jumping off the breath back onto the moment is a way to break it in the moment. But the other work I was sharing is a way to actually start getting on top of it.
That's really useful things. And I always say to kids as well, when you're feeling stressed, just stop and breathe. We don't get much further than that, but it's like put your hands on your belly, take 3 deep breaths,
Yeah. I've had people, students who are like, and I'm sitting in the exam and I was trying to breathe and I'm breathing and I still feel terrible. It's not the breathing. It's bringing your attention to the breath. Yeah. So find a dominant feeling of that breath. Either it's the chest rising and falling, it's the air going in through the nose, and hold your attention on it, because my attention cannot be on the story that I'm going to fail and I don't like these questions and this is too hard and I don't know the answer. It can't be on that and on my chest rising and falling. We've only got one focus. So give it a job, give your focus a job in that moment.
And you might know this. They say that when you stop and do that and you breathe deeply, neurologically, you actually go into the parasympathetic. You can't get into the sympathetic state when you do deep breathing. Is that?
Yeah. So think of parasympathetic as that rest, calm, digest, healing, and the sympathetic as that fight and flight doing mode. When, if you think about the caveman who's fighting a tiger, when the tiger leaves, the very first thing he does is take a really deep breath. And that sends a message from the body up, hey, no danger, the danger's gone away. So when we breathe like that, there's a particular breath called the physiological sigh response, and it will turn off that anxiety.
Yeah,
And what that looks like is where we breathe in through the nose and we get to the top of the breath, and then we take a second inhalation. And now we're really expanding the lungs and the diaphragm. And then we take a deep sigh out through our mouth and we soften. If you rewind games of Dusty playing, he constantly took that big, deep sigh. There's someone who I recommend everyone to follow on social media. He's called Andrew Huberman, Huberman Labs. And I'm saying all this stuff, Jules, hoping that you give resources in your podcast. Yeah.
So I'll put all the links in the notes.
So Huberman Labs, he's a neuroscientist, and all of his stuff is research based. He'll give you really good for teenagers and young adults. He'll give you heaps of information on sleep, recovery, sunlight, breath, and he's incredible. Wow. He talks about the physiological sigh response all of the time and the research behind it. So you'll see a lot of the athletes that I work with taking that big, deep breath and the sigh as a way to switch off that danger, danger, danger response.
Excellent. That's a great thing we can
a great one for exams. And the other little point for exams, so when or job interviews or anything really, when we are in that fight and flight response, danger, 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 where our body's just now trying to keep us alive and doesn't care about getting a good mark, doesn't care about the response you're going to give on exams, we get a very small posture. We've gone into that sort of hide fight mode. So when we open our posture, it sends a message to our mind, no danger here. All the danger's gone away. So I quite often tell students to walk into the exam room when you sit down and are waiting for reading time, sit back in your chair with your arms behind the chair, and it's opening up your posture. It enables you to breathe deeper, and it forces yourself to get out of that danger response. And then your mind's like, all good's here.
And allows all that good stuff to come back to you.
And then I say, with your arms behind the chair, just sort of rest your eyes into the distance on no particular focus point, because when this is something that they use in martial arts all the time, when we're fighting a tiger, we're locked in. Our focus is like on that tiger. When we're not under a threat, we're just gazing off into the distance. So if you can sit like that in reading time, what's happening is your frontal lobe of your brain that you need in reading time is open and receptive. If you're in that small posture, shallow breath, what if I fail? What if the question I don't want is on the question that I want is not on the exam? By the time we go into reading time, our frontal lobe is already shut down because it's gone into survival mode.
That's incredible that the connection is so strong, isn't it?
And we lose the ability to make decisions, and then we've got to do 20 multiple choice questions, and it's like my frontal lobe's completely shut down and left the building.
And can't think clearly.
No.
The final question I ask, which I like to ask all my guests, is what does success mean to you now? And has it changed over time?
I probably don't ever think of success versus failure, because I constantly think of that, what I said at the start of the podcast, that it's just another step and I'm just moving and it's just taking me somewhere else. So I'm always in this feeling and picture of going to the next step. So I never stop to think whether that was success or failure. I certainly was involved in the Paris Olympic Games, and the teams I was involved with really underperformed, and that felt like failure. And I came back from the Paris Olympic Games and I went straight into the Swans Grand Final campaign. And that was at the back end of 2024, I think. And they failed miserably. And so for the first time in my life, I had this really extreme of my working life. I had this extreme sort of experience of failure, and I went and did some work as a result with a practitioner called Dr. John Demartini, and in his work, he talks about everything being in equilibrium, that there's never, no situation ever has just benefits. There's benefits and drawbacks in everything we do. And even in those losses, there were benefits to me, to the players. And it's really hard to see in those times that we're like, that's failure. And he talks about when we just want the success without the failure, when we create this fantasy, because everything's working in equilibrium, we're going to get this big nightmare to balance it out. So he's like, you don't want to chase this success and avoid this failure. In everything, you want to see that it's not all good, it's not all bad, it just is.
Yeah, they're just all
So I think success for me is just being able to be present in the moment and meet the moment with whatever is required in that moment. That's it. I do like to, I've learned that I'm at my best when I go into a space being not always being the knower. Like, I'm on this podcast now, you're expecting me to come and teach you something, but I have to try and sit in the space of what can I learn, what can I get out of it. But yeah, I think just being able to meet the moment and be present in the moment with whatever it brings. I mean, I like to win as much as anyone. I wouldn't be in elite sport if I didn't.
Yeah.
But I've certainly learned, no athlete is more unhappy. From my experience, after winning an Olympic medal, there's a lot of down after that. What now? Like, I've been chasing this for all my life. I think when we get this success, what we really get is relief from that fear of failure and fear of other people's opinions for a moment. That's what we get. And so when we understand that we don't have to sit in that, there is really no such thing.
No, that's perfect. Thank you so much, Emma. It's been
Thanks,
amazing
Jules.
speaking to you, and so much wisdom there to share.
I need to tell your listeners that the reason why I pick and choose podcasts that I come on just because of time, really, and I also get bored of my own story sometimes. But when you reached out, and I said yes immediately, because you categorically have been the favorite teacher to two of my children. And I think being a teacher is already such an honorable profession, but to then be so liked in multiple year levels across, two very different kids, I'm like, you must be doing something pretty special there. So thank you to you for that.
Thank you. I love what I do. So I think I feel very blessed to be able to share the lives of these young people and have some impact, hopefully somewhere.
Yeah. Well, you've already had an impact in our household, so thank you.
Oh, no, well, thank you. And thank you so much for your generosity of time. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure.